Good afternoon. I would like to thank you for presenting this video despite of all the complications. My name is Eleni Han and I will be presenting a research I did in collaboration with Eva Keku, an art and cultural studies theorist, about renarrating the city in a contemporary environment. I am an architect specializing in theories of space and events that take part in it. I have experienced life in both Japan and Greece, two completely different worlds, which have engendered my interest in space and the situations in it. We regret for not being able to present with you in New York. We want to transmit the situation in Greece and how we experience it being based here. Athens is undergoing a critical situation, which we want to believe is an ongoing situation in transition. What the news broadcasts to you all over the world and what our experiences show, and also the pictures we will present, are not very positive. However, there are always two sides of a story, and we, as optimistic, positive, critical people and researchers, strongly feel that there are positive things coming out of the situation. First, because people take the action in their own hands, and secondly, because they search to reclaim space by creating inner networks and artistic expression. As the urban sociologist Robert Park said, man's most successful attempt to remake the world he lives in more after his heart's desire. But if the city is a world which man created, it is a world in which he is henceforth condemned to live. Thus, indirectly, and without any clear sense of the nature of his task, in making the city, man has remade himself. In this paper, we are most interested in public art performances, or otherwise, the various activities that take place in public space and that also involve public participation, which aim to solicit participation and interaction, developing new public spaces and adding new spatial dimensions. Currently, in Greece, the citizens are called to take the initiatives in their own hands, for it has been proven that the political system that has been in effect until now wasn't producing the desired results aside from benefiting the people in power. We also come to realize that the political operations and activities have since been allocated in individual neighborhoods and the communities, being supported by the solidarity of smaller groups. The institution of family, tenacious as it is in Greece, has been diminished and replaced by smaller individual teams, which give their stigma politically and artistically in order to retain their existence under the very difficult circumstances. In a universal level, we are going through a stage of redeployment of political and social roles, and where the notions of geographic borders are called to be overflowed by the local exposition and art and render the needs, distresses and fears of the people in crisis, part of a universal economical and social problem. Art, as it has been witnessed through history, flourishes in times of crisis where there is plenty of material. It uses those negative emotions and fears in particular to mobilize the citizens on a collective level. We will present various projects that are quite representative of expression in the city, some of which are even distinguished between guerrilla projects of a political nature or clearly artistic, but which all deal with the readdressing of the public space, the citizens' awareness, and the discussion of the city's significance, knowing in advance that in periods of crisis the best opportunities for transformation arise. To start with, we have the New York Lower East Side project, the Madre Terra, part of the more extended project Routes and Homes Migrant Trees. It is a continuation of a previous project called Open House, focusing predominantly on the concept of migration. It was realized in 2010 at the El Jardín de Paraíso in the Lower East Side, where the participants were mostly Latin American local residents and artists. The action included the planting of seeds of foreign countries, representing not only the migration of humans, but that of plants as well. Many of the seeds originated from Athens, and the difficulties of the journey were recorded, signifying the elaborate workings of nature and the weakness in our contemporary perception of it. The action in Paraíso also brought to light the subject of community gardens and their uncertain future in the developing urban environment. The people, in their attempts to protect this urban oasis, formed green guerrilla groups, transforming these areas into places of intense activism. Moreover, combining the Paraiso Garden with the Navarino Park at Exarchia in Athens, by placing in the side pictures of the park, the situation of community gardens gains a multidimensional aspect. The augmentation of the environment manages to promote a growing and ever more pressing issue to places and times facing similar problems and steering the attention of the public towards the spaces which were won after a struggle and which contribute to the shaping of the urban consciousness of Athens and of a new generation of activists. Continuing, we have the project Buried Words. Buried Words is a project by artist Barbara Papadopoulou that uses the green areas in a city to express ideas, actions, and feelings and to communicate to the public. It is an art of trace, as she puts it, which is an idea that oscillates between poetry and land art, word and image. The project has taken part in various European cities using the local language to express this poetic gardening. By planting grass on surfaces of land in public spaces, Papadopoulou creates words that evoke thoughts and feelings. As the grass grows taller, so do the words take form and become more distinct and clear, surprising the people that come across them and inspiring them to participate in this verbal form of gardening. As you can see, we have several words that she used with images, how it was planted and how it grew through time, and their meaning. Continuing with the urban gardening, another group of people in a certain park of Athens took the liberty to give a common use to an empty and abandoned plot of land. The architect Eleni Gergilaki, along with the local residents of the Psyri area, after hard work and diligence, managed to clean and prepare the plot of land of Agia Somati for gardening in order to create a local and communal vegetable garden where the locals could grow their own food. This action came as an answer to the economical crisis that has led many people and families to distress, as they often do not make enough money to support themselves. The area is in the central part of Athens. The first vegetable that was grown and then cooked caused great exultation and happiness to the people who worked in the garden, who often organized picnics there and shared the food among them. Evidently, the communal vegetable garden not only produced food, but also strengthened the relationships between the residents, some of them being immigrants and foreigners who were previously avoided by the locals. However, the vegetable garden didn't last long, since the area being of archaeological importance was soon fenced by the municipality and the people locked out of their garden. Despite the protestations and efforts to regain their garden, the area remains locked and fenced and the land unused and abandoned, proving the dysfunction of the municipality. Public space consists of various urban spaces, such as town squares, streets, parks, gardens, that today are landmarks or spaces in which nature survives in urban environment. They constitute spaces where various urban social events unfold. They assist in the orientation of the city, while the people living in the city have the opportunity to come in contact with its elements. They are spaces of movement and stasis in the city, spaces of meeting, protest, feast, revolution, with different stimuli from those that determine the bustling city. The use of the square in all cultures was dependent of the size, the traditions, and the habits, for the squares constitute a public space with particular historical memory. The squares in ancient Greece were situated within the limits of the city center, and they constituted a space of spectacles, fights, aggregation, space where the philosophers contemplated, and a space for the assembling of citizens. The ancient Athenian market, as an initial form of square, was a symbol of free expression and distribution of ideas and goods. It was a grander and more public representation of the residential atrium. Whereas in ancient times the agora, along with the rest of the public spaces were an extension of the residence that merged with the city, in the today of globalization and anonymity, public space has become an extraneous place and the residence a shelter from the public. However, traditions and habits help retain a degree of amity between the cities and the public spaces, especially in Mediterranean and other warm countries where the climate requires and allows for people to venture for longer periods in the city squares, parks and gardens to cool and spend some leisure time. Public art and events converge in this immigration to past habits, reinforcing it and accommodating to the citizens' developing perception of space. We consider, as we said in the preface, that we cover more situation of passage in which we will be supposed to enter actively, doing and changing the mentality, showing the negative comings, but showing through actions what should it change. To distance oneself, to have a neutral attitude, hence transition, in which there will exist a great participation. Participation and communication being the tools of reclaiming the public space, as Habermas discusses in his structural transformation of the public space. As Simmel well mentions, the revolution initiated by the railway reduced the gap between the social castes and orders and had a detrimental role in their composition and coexistence in space. Communion and osmosis, something that was absent in the Greek society and which was created in this extraordinary case, a problematic situation, since the danger found the people entrenched in their own economic and social spheres tends now, out of need, to change. The people finding themselves once again closer to one another, outside, in the town squares, claiming their rights and fighting for them in spaces that are public or making it public, are trying to connect themselves with the city around them. This is a poem. In the effort of reacquainting people to the public sphere, we often use elements relating to the current times. Such an example would be the art project This is a Poem by Code Poetry, a group of two Greeks artists who make use of the QR codes and the digital environment to create an augmented space between the digital and the physical. A very large building that was manufactured many years ago and where all Athenian families used to live, abandoned henceforth. It lies in Kypseli, an area where not many Greeks live anymore, as it is threatened by the existence of many foreigners. In Greece, it is considered that the main source of criminal activity resides in immigrants and illegal immigrants in particular, and perhaps this is one of the reasons that this wonderful building, which ground floor consisted of many commercial shops, it's now two upper floors of one of the largest cinemas, and its rooftop of an estival cinema is now deserted. Aside from an electrical shop on the ground floor and sporadic art performances presented on the third floor, the building remains neglected and unused. The School of Weimar, and in particular the postgraduate department of public art that is composed of multinational students, was invited by some architects and visited Greece between 12 and 19 of June, with the ambition to renovate the building, bringing it back to operation, and to resuscitate it through artistic performances and activities and theatrical performances. Some of these performances, notably those that took place in the Estival Cinema, brought people back into the building, reviving it, and connecting it back to the city and the locals that live near that building. Other projects examine the heterotopic concept of space as Michel Foucault elaborated in order to describe places and spaces that function in non-hegemonic conditions. These spaces cannot be defined. They are places of otherness, spaces that deviate from the norm, and where situations are created that combine both reality and illusion. Specifically in Athens, in the Omonia Square, the heterotopic concept takes its form in a multinational theme. It is a place frequented by many people every day, but it is also an area where many immigrants reside, according its multicultural aspects, mostly though a notoriety for high criminal activity, and therefore constituting it as a place to be avoided, especially after dark. Similarly, Kogia Square, being a few blocks away and deeper in the residential immigrant area, is an even more notorious place. The Karochi project that took place there on a Saturday noon in early April studied the human situation of the Kogia area. The square lies in the heart of Athens and has a great historical importance along with the buildings that surround it, among them being the Municipal Theatre by Chiller, where 150 immigrant families were once housed before it was demolished in 1933. Today, it is an urban void with nary a living tree in its vicinity, where immigrants and substance users assemble along with the occasional passerby heading to the surrounding shops. The project consisted of a person with a cart roaming the square and distributing fruit to the people present. It is a symbolic act, reminder of the immigrants with their carts that roam the streets scrounging for metal and paper in the waste bins so they can sell it afterwards on the other side of the city. A group called Atenistas, which actually goes by different names in every city that it participates, encourage the residents in acting in a collective manner in spaces that are not used and in socializing, setting stronger bonds among them. Atenistas organize various meetings in parks and other public spaces with diverse content such as cleaning the park or organizing tango nights in old and abandoned train stations. Other formations such as the Land Street Party also work in a similar fashion. In the Land Street Party, people are invited each month to aggregate in local open spaces and share their food with others. The intent is the collectiveness, acquaintance with the other, the discussion on common problems and issues, and the active involvement in public space that a few years ago did not have the same character in Greece. I just presented you various images of the events that the Atenistas and the Land Street Party created in the city of Athens in order to reinvigorate the people and familiarize them with public space. Another project, however, focuses mostly on the human geography and the heterotopic microcosm. Polypolis by Sarcha is a mindset-shifting board game that is realized in Yerani Keramikos, among other areas and cities. The Polypolis game was initially a research mechanism where different groups of players strive to resolve the complex issues related to the existing human, physical, natural resources within city blocks. As the current economic crisis hits a number of European countries, Polypolis social game takes a life of its own. It uses a playful manner to train educate city inhabitants to cope in common with issues that affect their lives' resources. The whole neighborhood transforms to a board game representation and its inhabitants manage it according to their roles. Through this game, the people become reacquainted with their area, while reshaping their role in it, and the physical living space transforms into an illusionary, ludic space. Cities are born in order to cover needs of cohabitation and interaction. Often these needs are covered completely and correctly, whereas other times only partially. The sociopolitical conditions violently force and prompt in the change of notions that concern interaction and coexistence, as well as in the planning for the viability of the cities. It is a fact that the networks we presented, despite being either autonomous or collective efforts and synergistic initiatives, lack cohesion and connection. They, however, constitute the beginning of a basis for policy and the location of problems in a complex city with non-existent planning for incorporating foreigners and multicultural societies. Although Athens is a European city, it has a very complex character, since not only does it have a geographical but also a sociopolitical obscure position in the West, according it a similarly undefined identity. Besides, the reception and incorporation of the immigrants and foreigners has greatly proven that policies applied in other countries are non-existent in Greece. We remain, as we proposed in the beginning, optimistic and positive, for critical situations can bring changes, which we hope will be with a positive turn. In fact, some months ago, the architectural competition under the name Rethink Athens was announced. It is a much debated competition as it was announced during an economical and social crisis, so presenting two contradicting sides of society that come in conflict, especially when society cannot provide the basics for a large percentage of its population, while on the other hand it wishes more viable urban conditions of coexistence and aims in the redesigning of a historical center. Thus, the situations of crisis have come to be contradictory, oxymoronic, and through the conflict and the fight of the different groups comes change. Before closing, we would also like to add that we have included a list of projects by artists we came across during our research that we thought might interest you and wish to share with you. We also mentioned some activities that have taken place in the last couple of years. It is not an extensive one, it is, however, in your disposal. We consider these activities illustrative of a season that prompts the subject to change, developing a new mentality, refamiliarizing oneself with the public space, renegotiating the relation with others, and visualizing a new city in terms of aesthetics, architecture, social, and coexistence. This indeed constitutes also a reason to revisualize the city, not only externally but also internally, paying particular attention in policies that work from the ground up. This has been instigated by events that led the citizens to lose their trust in the politicians and resulted in them regaining their trust in themselves. Thank you for your attention, and we apologize we couldn't be with you in New York, but we again thank you for presenting this video to the conference. Goodbye from me and Eva Keku, and goodbye from Greece.